The boroughs are New York City. The burbs are everywhere else. Real estate is the ultimate game of risk and reward. It's the biggest investment most people ever make. Fortunes are made over a lifetime and lost in a day. And we're not playing with monopoly money. How do you stay ahead? Who's buying? Who's selling? And why? What do they know? We want the truth. You need an edge. Boroughs and Burbs is your secret weapon, giving you the insider knowledge and strategies you need to succeed in the high-stakes world of real estate. From Palm Beach to Palm Springs, Manhattan to Malibu, we press the experts to expose the pain, find the deals, and occasionally predict the future. That's Boroughs and Burbs, Thursdays, 3 o'clock Eastern, noon Pacific. Because everyone can make money in real estate.
Welcome, everybody. Boroughs and Burbs, Season 5, Episode 206, Deconstruction as a Profit Center. I'm your host, John Engel, and I'm joined by my co-host, Roberto Cabrera.
Hello, everybody from the Upper West Side of Manhattan. See my friend there. And where are you? Palm Springs? What'd you say?
I'm in Palm Springs, California. I said, should I wear a bow tie? And they said, that would be ridiculous. Nobody wears a bow tie in Palm Springs, California. You know, it's okay, John, to reveal that sometimes you go casual. So
you see, when John doesn't have his propeller, he's like rudderless. He has no idea where he'll end up. Look at him. Jeez.
All right, I'm going to share a couple screens. So there we are, Boroughs and Burbs. You can find us at boroughsandburbs.com, and this episode will be up on boroughsandburbs.com in about a half hour after showtime. That's my website. I'm John Engel at the Engel team at Douglas Elliman in Connecticut, and we cover Fairfield County. That is my co-host, Roberto, and that's his monthly newsletter. That's how I found Roberto, one of the best writers and analysts in the New York City market. This month, caviar or corned beef hash. Got to check it out. You'll find it at robertocabrera.com. Grace Farms Tea and Coffee. Want to thank our sponsor. And you can go to sharegracefarms.com and pick up their teas and coffees. Good for the world. Today, second chance. Retrain, reclaim, renew. We're going to learn about deconstruction instead of demolition. You can see the Second Chance crews at work here. Without any further ado, welcome, Mark Foster, Second Chance. And who are you with?
Hey, John, thank you. I'm with David Frost and Savannah in our office here in Baltimore, Maryland. Happy to see you and Robin and Roberto join us today. We'd all love to be in Palm Springs. The rain just passed through here, and we find it's now made its way to New York and, ultimately out of there, and the sun's right behind it. So don't hold your breath too long. You'll have the sun up there, for Robin and Roberto. But thank you for having us. It's joy to be here.
I think, you know what? I'm glad I'm in Palm Springs, which in many respects is, as you say, the opposite of New York City and, say, Baltimore. Here, everything is painted white, and it is one story high, very flat. But I will say that there is an inordinate interest in restoring what is old and saving what is old. And so I'm really happy to be doing today's show with you. We can learn a little bit about, making a business out of restoring and reclaiming. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Second Chance?
Sure. And there's a whole industry, as you know, John, it's involved in, replacing buildings, taking pieces and parts away, whether that be a kitchen, whether that be bathroom remodeling. All of that is a major industry in the States. Second Chance started. First question you asked me back in the beginning of this was how to get started. And really, I was a private sector guy before this. I did restaurant development. I was in the hotel business. And I finally said to myself, I was mid-40s, I said, I got to start getting up at sunrise instead of going to bed at sunrise. It's a great industry, great business. But, I had a daughter who was 4 at the time. And I said, really, for me to see more of her and for me to have a normal lifestyle, I'm going to have to get out of that. So I'm fortunate enough to be able to, turn the page and start a new chapter. And that started with a house that my wife and I bought, and worst house in the best neighborhood. You folks in real estate certainly understand that. let's put some time and effort into it, polish it up, and hopefully someday, sell a gem. Young and crazy enough to do that. The house was built in 1902. Found that the parts and pieces were really difficult to come by. There wasn't anybody that was really, warehousing those items, making it easier for you to find, call it wavy glass, call it balusters, call it, replacement doors that were in period, 100 years old. So what we came to the conclusion was, there needed to be a place that would assimilate all those, materials and make them available to people. And we started off with mostly, architectural salvage, which is, the older materials that were suitable for the house that I was renovating at the time, and many others were in Baltimore, New York. Many of the urban locations were going under a renaissance, and it enabled people to have a place to be able to acquire those materials. So we hit the ground in about 2003. It was a great time for many urban pioneers who were call them flippers, who were buying shells, fixing them up, and reselling them. Some to live in, some to sell, some to rent. So the industry was and has continued to be pretty vibrant in many of the cities in which we do work. But the idea was, the genesis of it was to acquire the materials, and the question was, how do you do that? And we came upon the idea that starting a nonprofit that would train people how to become, aware of and proficient in deconstructing buildings, whether that be houses, whether that be commercial buildings, would allow us to create the workforce. And the nice part about it was that those workers we identified as the most disadvantaged members of the community were going to be our target focus. And they became returning citizens, predominantly African American, city residents. Barriers to employment would be educational, structural racism, all those kinds of things that would stand in their way of sustainable employment. Deconstruction can be done through on-the-job training. That's how you're going to learn the skills. You're going to be able to be shown how to do something and not necessarily be required to have the English or math skills or read blueprints. You're basically going to learn how to take apart a structure. And so our target population that we tried to help was really perfect for that. They had the wherewithal to, physical wherewithal to do it. They had desire. They wanted their second chance, and deconstruction allowed them that venue. Once we got the materials back, which people were willing to give us through the idea that we're a nonprofit, much like you would give Goodwill a pair of pants, you could also give second chance your doors, your clawfoot tubs, your windows, your flooring, your lighting, all of that you were going to be taking out of a renovation project could come to our warehouse and then be repurposed and reused by others. So the idea of environmental benefits, societal benefits, and of course the economic benefits that come with charitable contributions made Second Chance what it is today, a much larger organization, probably about 300 employees as we speak now.
Now, is this only occurring in the Baltimore region, or do you travel for a particularly good house or good project?
We travel Florida to Maine, west to the Mississippi, in that whole geographic area. There are other entities similar to us, some nonprofits, some for-profit. So if you're listening to this in California or Utah, around you will be entities that are either nonprofit, like I said, or for-profit, that will do deconstruction for you and allow you to make a decision to have that material stay out of the landfill. So it is national. There are international folks doing it as well. Of course, in Europe, they've been doing it for a long time, but mostly for their own benefit, not for tax benefits.
So the basic idea is I have a house that I either buy and I'm going to raise it, or I'm going to completely gut renovate my house. And I call you and I say, listen, there's a lot of salvageable things here in the house. Can you come? And essentially you strip the house down of whatever is of value and you take it away.
Absolutely, Roberto. That's the perfect description of it. And whether your contractor does it or whether we do it, that's going to be something we can help you work through the economics, is how that makes sense. But to take that material and set it on the driveway and have someone pick it up and donate it and get the tax benefits as one element of it, but also be able to keep it out of the landfill and let it be used by other members in the community makes all the sense in the world. And especially when you think about some of that special material, especially in some of the places you all travel, New York specifically, those materials aren't ever going to be made again. A lot of those materials are, once, made in the 20s or 30s. That's craftsmanship, that ability to produce those kinds of materials. There is a place in New York called Oh Good Things you may have heard of.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, yeah.
marketing those materials. And when you look at their inventory and you go online and look at it, you don't see that anymore. You don't see that kind of material made anymore. And we have some of it. They have a lot of it. And so it's out there, but the only way it's going to continue to be out there is if people make that decision to have it salvaged and deconstructed versus demolished.
Now, I'm a customer. I would say 15 years ago, probably 15 years ago, maybe 20, I found Green Demolitions, and they had a warehouse near me, and they were specializing in deconstructed kitchens. And I thought, I'm not going to find anything great, and I unfortunately, I said, oh, it's just going to be a bunch of junk. And they called me the day after I arrived, and they said, you wanted a white kitchen? We have a 1930s white kitchen that's coming from the estate of Calvin Klein on Long Island. And we think it's perfect for you. I raced over there. I bought the 12 cabinets and I loaded them up on a trailer and I brought them back and I installed those 12 cabinets, installed that entire kitchen in our beach house. And I think that I got a better kitchen than if I had bought it new, and a more appropriate for the period kitchen because it wasn't new. So I just think I got a better product, a better design, and Green Demolitions, like you, 501c3, doing their best to deconstruct for the benefit of charity.
Sure.
So I'm a big fan of what you're doing.
Well, thank you. And there's many people out there like you with the same sentiments. It's just, and we appreciate you all spreading the awareness, right? Talking to you today, the folks that are, listening in and looking in are becoming aware of, the topic was deconstruction versus demolition, and how do you, and I'll let David speak a little bit to the differences in that and how demolition doesn't do anything other than create an invoice for you to pay for the dumpsters to roll away, where deconstruction can, generate some tax benefits, some environmental savings, some cost aversion for the cost of getting rid of the materials because they're not going to be sent to the landfill. You don't have to pay for that. They're going away in a truck versus a dumpster. So I'll let David speak a little bit to the differences there.
Yeah, I mean, when you're just like Mark said, when you're looking at demolition, it's just it's a straight cost to your project overall. It's only going to take a few days. They'll basically raise the whole thing, put it into dumpsters, haul it away. Your demo contractor will probably give you one quote just for everything all in. When you're considering deconstruction instead, as opposed to being an expense, it winds up being like a positive pool of money that goes into your project because of the tax deduction that you'd get from donating reusable items to a 501c3, to a charity. The one thing that it would put you back is a little bit more time. Traditional demolition may take 2, 3, 4 days, depending on how big the house is. Deconstruction can take anywhere from, say, 2 to 3 weeks to do, depending on the amount of deconstruction, if it's a whole house or just an interior gut. And the way that we generally work that is we'll line up in front of your demo contractor, come in, deconstruct all of the things. And then the day we leave, your demo contractor comes in and kind of scoops up all the debris that wasn't salvageable. Takes out, a dumpster load or whatever it may be. And then you get on with your project after that. So generally when homeowners come to us and they're thinking about deconstruction for a house that they're going to be tearing down, time is just one consideration. And because the tax benefit can be so useful to them, they're willing to put up with a couple extra weeks timeline for us to come in and do our work to create that positive pool of money for them.
So it does not cost me money. It does not cost me money to contact you. You come in and actually take everything and I actually get a deduction out of it.
Right. You got to think of it holistically. So these are fairly large deductions. I mean, when we're talking whole houses, especially, many thousands of square feet, we can talk into the hundreds of thousands in deductions very easily and very quickly. Now, for our part, to do a deconstruction, we'll ask for a pledge amount from the homeowner as well to come up and basically try to cover our costs. somewhat for our crews that are up there training in the deconstruction field. That's paying their salaries and transportation costs and things like that. But even with that pledge that we're asking for, the overall deduction amount is the lion's share goes to the homeowner there, and it's a net positive cash wise for the homeowner.
Can we just make a practical example? Let's just say you have a 3,500, 4,000 square foot house. It's on Long Island, and you come in. The contribution you're looking for would be, I mean, and this is just a general scenario. Approximately would look like what, and the deduction would approximately look like what?
Here's we're going to put up a slide for you, Roberto,
Perfect.
that shows a
Awesome.
typical, and this is just a $200,000 house. And as David was just referring to, and I was talking to Robin earlier about a $4 million house that we did recently. So that you can use the numbers here just as an example. And $200,000 is probably the low end of what typically someone would get for a deduction for a whole house deconstruction where they're demolishing and removing the structure. And you can just use 200 and multiply it by whatever your property might be worth. And I should insert here that, to your point, there is no cost to explore this, right? The appraiser, that's an independent appraiser, will give you this number, this deduction amount for free, right? They'll give you a free estimate of what, so you can run your own numbers with an estimate of what is probably going to be your deduction if you were to go through the whole deconstruction process. So we use 40% federal and state tax bracket. If your house and you give it to us, we deconstruct it, you get a $200,000 deduction. The government's going to send you $80,000 check, or you're going to save $80,000 in taxes. If you give us $28,000, $28,500, that's also deductible. You get a deduction for that as well because it's a charitable contribution to us. That's actually law, so you don't have to worry about that being, did I get a service or anything else? But it's actually the law that is deductible. So your net cost to us is $17,000. You generated a pool of money of 80. Your cost to us is 17, and for giving us this house in deconstruction, you walk with 62.9.
So the pledge amount is based on a percentage, or how's that based?
It's based on really scope of work. How much time we need to spend there. Is your house sided? Is it brick? We're not going to be able to salvage the brick, so it's going to be a shorter duration of time. If your house is wood frame, balloon frame, that's going to take us more time. If you have a slate roof, now all these things can add value to your deduction, but they also take a little bit more time. So it's really the appraiser comes out, he gives you the ballpark. You go to your CPA, say, hey, does this work for me? And then he runs those same numbers we ran. He knows your tax bracket. He knows your, use of the deduction. And he says, hey, yeah, Roberto, you should proceed forward because this is a no-brainer for you. You're going to do well by it. And we'd like people to think, yeah, this is the economic side of it, but we also want them to be thinking environmental and societal. These are folks that are getting an opportunity to work. They're doing the work. They're learning. You're also helping the environment by keeping it out of the landfill. But we get the idea that without this $63,000 bottom line, most of our donors may not move forward because the environmental and societal are just not enough of a push for them to move forward. It's really the economics that make this model work. And the tax code is written that way, right? It's meant to incentivize people to have good behavior. That's what the whole charitable idea is about. So this is just you might have seen it in the past where people donated their house to the fire department for a tax deduction. The fire department was getting training, much like what Second Chance is doing. So it's not a new model. It's just a version of a model that existed before Second Chance started.
So give me a sense of timeline. If I call you and I say, look, I want to do this to my house, you're going to come to my house within a week and you're going to get, what is that timeline, more or less?
We've gotten a call from somebody one day and started the next. It's not a hard process to go through the machinations of running the numbers. That's just a question of how fast can you make sure this makes sense for you. Because we've been doing this for 20 years and we have 10 to 12 crews, we know that we have the flexibility to respond that quickly. Most people who are in our industry are more mom and pops, much smaller, don't have, we have 100 people in the field every day doing this. So allocating that to make sure that we could, address your situation with a very limited time frame we can do that and have done it in the past. So more time the better, but everybody can pull the pieces together and it can happen very quickly. We also, to David's point, some people's concern is, are you going to hold up my project? And we don't. We make sure we coordinate that with the builder or the person that the project manager that's involved, make sure that we get our work done. Our scope of work gets done. We're out of the way, and we don't hold up the timeline because we know time is money.
When is it not appropriate? It occurs to me that a lot of people might say, well, my house isn't vintage. My house isn't pre-war. It doesn't have vintage fixtures. It's just, ordinary white walls and, an ordinary house. They don't want my house.
We want, John, we want every house for our training. It's a classroom, right? So we're not concerned necessarily that you have, gold faucets or anything like that. We like to see those, but that's not going to be, the decision maker for us. We're going to decide that this is a good thing for you to be able to do. What motivates it on your end is the ability to use a tax deduction. So if you can't generate that pool of money, then it's not going to work for you. Or if you're retired and you don't have that that way to use the tax benefits, that's what makes this model work. So it's really more a function of that than it is a house desirable. People are often surprised at what their house is valued at, but as I said earlier, it doesn't cost anything to find out.
I mean, the town of New Canaan right now has just made the decision to remove Irwin House in Irwin Park, that it has no use for the town of New Canaan as office space anymore. And a lot of people are wringing their hands with how wasteful it is to just spend $500,000 when you're a municipality, basically removing a house. I think a lot of people would call up the town and say, hey, can we recycle part of this? So I think that there's probably more than just the tax deduction. There's a whole new, I think, movement afoot to try and recycle, do a better job of recycling everything around us instead of just sending it to the landfill. So I think that, that's a candidate for what you do. So I think even if I don't have a house, I probably know of somebody with a house, and everybody watching this show probably knows of somebody with a house that we can make a phone call.
That's well said. And I think I'm the founder of Second Chance, been here, call it 25 years now. And when we first got started, what you're referring to is that throwaway society back in the day of, .com and all of that, and the beginnings of Second Chance. As we looked out into the community of people we worked with, there was just a mentality of, disposable society. Our kids, I think, are forcing us to rethink that. Global warming, whatever your impression is of that, is making us rethink the idea that these commodities are, replaceable very easily. Many of them are irreplaceable, as we talked about the architectural elements, but just why throw wood away and cut another tree down when you have it readily available to you, and you have some product that doesn't exist anymore. You're not going to get that heart pine from 100 years ago. You're not going to get the chestnut anymore. It's not out there. So don't get rid of it. And we'd love to, talk to the town about that building and see what we can do, to at least make some effort to save some of it. If we can't make sense of all of it, let's try to do at least the best job we can to feel better about it.
So you guys, we're talking a lot about houses and free structures. I'm curious, do you work in an urban environment, in apartments and things like that? I know like New York is tremendously dense, and there's some amazing, like good old things like we had talked about, who do a lot of work in New York, and they'll salvage mantelpieces and all kinds of doorknobs, all kinds of things from pre-war buildings. Do you guys do any of that, like in Baltimore or in some of the other cities?
Yeah, we're up and down the East Coast. We're Florida to Maine. We're doing, urban settings as well as suburban settings. As you might imagine, there was a, stock market's done well for a lot of people. You all are in real estate. You realize a lot of people are diversifying their stock portfolio by buying beach houses, tearing them down and putting up, new oceanfront homes. So we're up and down the East Coast, from Margate to Avalon to, we just did a job on Long Island.
Yeah.
Rehoboth, all up and down because, the Philadelphia market, the New York market, they're all buying those second homes. They have the wherewithal. And I think, that's been, a boon to us in terms of those waterfront communities, but also, the urban settings you're referring to. There's a lot of, and we'll show you some pictures of a house. Maybe we'll put it up now and we'll show you some of the kinds of materials. One of the projects Second Chance did was, we built a house called the Concept House, and we deconstructed the original structure, and we put together this home, and all the materials you'll see in it. Let's stay inside. And all of this, the doors, floors, windows, cabinets, appliances, are all reclaimed materials from job sites, both suburban and urban. You can see there's 10 different kinds of flooring in the house. There's artwork, lighting. You can see the mantle in the library there was from Philadelphia. That's a marble mantle. The bookcases all came out of Washington, D.C. So yeah, there's a lot of, there was a lot of, call it wealth in the cities, concentrated in the cities back in the early, part of the 19th century, 18th century, that manifested itself in this remarkably fabulous woodwork and, walnuts, mahoganies, the whole realm of just fabulous, material. And much of it made its way into examples of what you could do with it in this house. We were talking earlier, the railing system was a Juliet balconies that we had, fabricated into a railing system in the great room. Again, just trying to give people the idea of how to repurpose, how to reuse these materials, but also helping people understand the caliber of materials that Second Chance works with, the kind of caliber of our donors in some cases. Earlier we talked, and John mentioned, some people have a more pedestrian house. That's fine. We're happy to work with that. We're also happy to work with donors who have nicer things and also have a more demanding set of expectations for how our work gets done. So we're able to, navigate both, call it the more pedestrian, project. An example there, we'll go back one slide. You're talking about the kitchen, John, earlier. Story behind this kitchen was a real estate speculator in McLean, Virginia, a high net worth community. Most houses are sold for over $10 million. He speculated on a 10-acre property with a house on it. Didn't get the bites he wanted. His realtor said, hey, you need to put a new kitchen, new master bath, in this house to really, pump up the interest in it. He did that. It did sell, and the guy who bought it tore it down. So the kitchen had never had a fork in it. So it's now in the concept house, and the counter, the marble Carrera that you see there that's on the countertop, came out of that same house. So there's all those kinds of stories contained within this concept house. It talks about, what has happened, what's available out there. The range was from a project we did in Chevy Chase, in which they renovated the house and then later found out after doing a total renovation of the house that they had a spring under the house and had to tear it down. There was a water problem under the house. So the stove had never had it still had the catalog in it, still had the manual. So there's all these kinds of stories that happen and all these kinds of opportunities for the organization, but it's about awareness. And that's why we appreciate talking to y'all today. It's just spreading the word that whether it's Second Chance or, recycling the past in Barnegat, New Jersey, or Old Good Things, or, the places, Provenance up in Philadelphia, there are folks out there, Habitat for Humanity restorers. There are folks out there who can give you an opportunity for a second chance to your materials.
I have that range, by the way, right now. I have
There you go.
range, and I looked into what a dual fuel Viking or Wolf costs these days, and I think it's approaching $18,000. And we looked at ours and we said, yeah, but it needs new knobs and it needs new lettering. And you know what? You can get all those things. So don't be afraid of getting a quote unquote used range, because there are companies out there that'll make it new.
So interestingly enough, the floors in this particular office are from St. Peter's Basilica, which is the second oldest basilica in the United States. That's hard pine. We'll show you another slide. So everything, again, has a story. There's the railing system. We can keep going. we'll go to the one with the bedroom. If we find that one, I think it's one more too. The beams came from Connecticut that are in the bedroom on the second floor, hand hewn. Those are, French oak floors from a house we did down in Bethesda. So it's just it's a house that tells a story. That one room upstairs with all the doors in it. We got 1,100 doors from the Marriott in Washington D.C. and we used them in that application up in the what we'll call the storage room above. That's above the garage. That's a storage room on steroids. That's maple and black walnut flooring.
Wow.
So those doors are all, basically hotel room doors.
I
That's
think
amazing.
the story, I think it's what a realtor would call better than new. Anybody can just order new, but when you can get it to look new, but with a story like that, where you've carefully sourced and curated each piece, I think that's better than new.
Yeah, it's nice to have a story, John. I think you're right. Provenance is what we call it in the industry of, having a story behind it. When we take up floors, all the floors, we write the address on the back of it. So when you buy it, you know where it came from. These beams from Connecticut. Actually, the floors in this house, in this particular 2 rooms, are from Anne Bancroft's house. If you remember her from the Graduate, right? So those are cherry floors, and they're from her house that we did down in Queenstown, Maryland. So it is nice to talk to people about what's going on in the house, where it came from. The niche in that room has those are cedar planks from Mushroom Farm in Baltimore County. So it's fun to always fun in anybody's house to have a story where something came from.
So do you have, when you, I donate my house and you take away all the best pieces, do you have a source for distributing that? Do you have builders who say, I'm looking for mantles, give me mantles, give me light fixtures, give me doors, I'll take all you got?
It's interesting. We have a huge warehouse. We actually have the largest reuse warehouse in the country. It's in Baltimore. It's about now 400,000 square feet. So it's full of everything and anything you would ever want. The builders are their own unique trade. Mostly we get homeowners who come in on their time instead of their builder's time. They come find what they want, and then they take a picture of it, make sure their builder can install it. And so they do most of their own shopping for builders. We do sell some lumber packages because we do a lot of lumber this year. We'll probably do 225 whole houses from the roof to the foundation. And that's a lot of houses and a lot of wood, a lot of lumber, a lot of flooring. So we're able to supply some things to the market, the builders market, but they also like the ease of picking up the phone and calling 84 Lumber. Where a homeowner likes the savings that they get, and if they spend their own time on it, we're typically somewhere between 40 and 70% less than new. And as you can see from the concept house, a lot of it looks new.
250 houses a year, that's more than one every other day. So this isn't just, you're not just dabbling. This isn't just a sideline. This is a significant amount of houses.
It's a huge amount, and the more the merrier, right? We started out with 4 our first year in 2003, and now we do 250, and it grows every year because we have examples like this where we are able to make people aware of this opportunity. It's all word of mouth.
Yeah, I can imagine. The more people that know about this, which I was really a little bit of the impetus to do this show, is it's incredible. It's invaluable, and the stories and the provenance that you're talking about these places really makes the places very rich in just in where it's your home, right? It's an amazing thing that you're doing. Is there a lot of competition in your business at this moment?
We would love more, Roberto. I mean, there's so much going on out there. As just one example, and just in Arlington, Virginia, there are 300 teardowns a year just in Arlington. Wow. Just in Arlington. So if you think about nationally or regionally or mid-Atlantic, whatever your scope of geographic you want to look at, it is nonstop. It's happening everywhere, and we are by far the largest deconstruction company in the United States doing what we do. But there's little mom and pops running around trying to do it, but the economies are tough,
Yeah.
unless you can figure out how to make a business out of it. I was private sector, so a lot of the nonprofit guys are not necessarily well versed in a business of this nature. So that's a barrier. The other side of it is a lot of people want to start a business and sell it for their own benefit in the future. And nonprofits, I don't own it, so I can't sell it. So there's no, big pile of money at the end of starting a nonprofit. That may deter some people from doing it. But at the end of the day, there's room for many, many more people to be doing this.
It's really amazing. I mean,
Well, I think what you guys are helping us help people understand is that this process of demolition can be bifurcated into demolition and deconstruction donation, and it can become this profit center if you manage it. It doesn't need to be just a line item cost. It can be something more. And we're here to help people understand that. Some cases it works, other cases it doesn't. But there's no reason not to have that conversation and explore how you can make this make sense to you economically and also get the back end benefits of environmental and social benefits. But the economics drive it. We realize that, we appreciate that. We also know that the other two elements of it are important to a lot of people. If you've lived in a house and you're about to scrape it, it does have some, emotional connection to you. And if you can let it live on in some form or fashion, you're going to feel better about it than if it just all heads into the landfill.
Top
Do-
5 things that have value. What are those things? Help me visualize what I should be looking for in a house and say, oh, this is a valuable property. We need to call second chance. So what are those top 5?
Anything and everything is in the top 5, right? Everything has value, John. If you can't use the tax deduction, that's one thing. If you can, you're going to know the values, right? The mantles, the flooring because there's volume, right? There's a lot of square footage of it. Mantles because they could be valuable in the sense of the one you saw in the concept house. You look around your house, you're probably familiar the range that you just talked about, $18,000 for a new wolf range, right? So they don't depreciate that much because there's not a whole lot of moving parts in there, right? It's gas and it goes. So they're, people like them. We saw a lot of them. Sub-zero refrigerators, if you happen to have one of those. But you get down to it, it ends up, some of it's about volume: toilets, sinks, floors, doors, windows. You start adding it up and it's not hard to get to a pretty big number. And
My
the bigger
old
the number,
toilet has
the better.
value. Somebody wants my old
absolutely.
toilet.
Well, it goes the range from, Home Depot version all the way up to Toto toilets that cost $3,000. Now you got the ones that lift up when you come into the room.
well,
It's gotten crazy in the world of toilets.
windows. That's huge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Somebody wants my old windows? I thought that was the whole point of getting rid of leaky old windows to get new tight windows.
Well, people use them for garages. They use them for greenhouses. They use them for, all kinds. They use them decoratively. They replace the panes with mirrors. And because what's interesting about old windows is one of the reasons you take them out, if they're wood windows, is they have peeling paint and all that. Some people call that patina. So when you get that up on the wall and you make it artistic, now it becomes a work of art rather than a window that's in a house of peeling paint. So we find a lot of our customer base, people say, well, who shops second chance? And we say, who doesn't, right? It's everybody. It's starving artists, it's creatives. We also have a section out front of the warehouse we call Free Cycle. We give away things to the community who can't afford it or wants to use it in a way that they don't want to necessarily invest money to make that piece of art. But if they can start with a free window, they can make a piece of art and then sell it. So it's really an interesting, our idea is to give both people and materials a second chance.
Can you tell us some stories of the people who've worked for you?
Yeah, it's amazing, Roberto. It brings great joy to us to be involved not only on the material side, but most importantly, the people side. And from the beginning, having identified what we would consider the most disadvantaged members of the community, and they come to you with some stories that again, you think you kind of have an appreciation, and you come to realize very quickly you have no appreciation for what it what it's like to live in the communities that some of the folks are coming from. The challenges they have when they get the second chance, they take a deep breath because now they're in their safe spot, right? It's safe here. It's not safe from here to get home. It's not safe at home. The communities they come from are challenged, as we all know, in many, many different ways, whether it's open drug markets, whether it's, just poverty, whatever it might be. They come to us for an opportunity, and to be able to take, one of those associates and see them not have any of the life skills or social skills or mechanisms to find their way in the world more easily, and to be able to convey those over some period of time. I'll give you an example. It's a network of folks that work together trying to help this community. And you get a call one day, get a call from a gentleman who says, I got a gentleman who's getting released. He's been inside 46 years, right? He's been incarcerated, went in at 18, he came out at 64. We're going to be his first job. His name's Tyree. We have a video made of Tyree and a number of other associates where he tells his story, but I'll convey a little bit of his story to you today, just as an example. So Tyree comes to us as a recommendation. He's out of jail. The recommendation says, here's his number. So I text Tyree and I say, Tyree, this is Mark at Second Chance. John told me to give you, text you, and let's get together so we can talk about the opportunity we might be able to provide for you at Second Chance. I text him, doesn't hear from him, text him again, don't hear from him. I say, John, what's going on with Tyree? She told me he was a good guy and he's interested in his Second Chance opportunity. John goes to find Tyree. Tyree doesn't know how to use his phone. He never had one. He's 64 years old, never had a phone. Tyree now, fast forward 5 years now, Tyree's an assistant manager doing research, doing pricing. When Tyree was incarcerated, he used to write legal briefs for trying to help his fellow inmates get out of jail. So he's very literate, very capable. He just came with no skill sets in terms of the world from 2000 on that we all know with cell phones and all that was a world he never was a part of. Wow. And his story is just one of many, but it's one in which you see an individual. I think I would carry a chip on my shoulder because Tyree will tell you he was wrongly incarcerated. He can't prove it, but he didn't have any DNA as part of his case. And as we all know, DNA is now exonerating many people who were, sent to jail for long periods of time, but he didn't have that as part of his case. So he did his, full, term, so to say, 46 years. He finally did get out, and he's made the best of it. And that's what you love to see. There's variations of that same theme. And then, of course, you have your knuckleheads, folks that come on board and, we say to them, look, we're just a vehicle for you to move forward. But if you don't put your foot on the gas, the vehicle's not going anywhere. So we can't drag you to a place in which you're successful. It's all on you, but we're here to help you. We're here to provide you an opportunity, but it's on you. So it's accountability is the, primary, thing that we help people understand. It's about you. We're here to help you, but it's about you.
How about partnerships? It occurs to me that organizations like Habitat for Humanity, which are trying to solve the affordable housing crisis, one house at a time. We just did a charity work for them yesterday as an organization, filling bags, and heard that story in Habitat for Humanity Las Vegas. So it occurs to me that they might be an excellent partner for you. They're national, and they have a complementary goal, if you will. Any opportunities to partner out there?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a network of nonprofits in any community that work together. We have, we'll call them employment partners as well, people who are going inside the prison system, searching out the candidates that would be applicable to Second Chance. So you get your best match, if you want to call it, for someone who's returning to the community, needs to find a place that suits them well, at least a place to initiate that transition for work and housing and healthcare, get those things lined up. So we're an employer trainer. You need the healthcare partner and you need the housing partner. So you need to, have a network of folks, partners, working together to support this individual, male and female, that are coming back into the community. It's the population we serve. And then when you go beyond that to the materials and how do you acquire them and the relationships with the habitats and all the restores that are around us as well. It takes a village, as they say, for this whole industry to succeed. Recently a lot of the funding for some of our partners was either eliminated or called into question, and that just makes that partnership, more difficult, for us to, keep together, because some of them are, unfortunately underfunded at the moment.
It occurs to me that having been chairman of the town council and now I'm on the planning and zoning board in my local community, it occurs to me that the community has really spoken out against demolishing everything, clear cutting, just a wasteful culture. And so we've instituted things like a 90-day demolition delay. And if any member of the community raises their hand and says, I think that is a house worth saving, they can institute a 90-day delay on demolition. I think that's the kind of thing that people feel helpless, and they therefore start these delays, but it really only delays many times the inevitable without basically introducing programs like this to the owner. We're not able to do anything but delay. So it occurs to me that maybe as a member in my local community, we could introduce this as another step, a second step in the demolition delay process. You not only have to delay it and give it some thought for 90 days, but with 90 days forced upon you, you now have the opportunity to call Mark Foster at Second Chance, and he will go from Florida to Maine, and he will, take down this and reuse it. I think that would be an opportunity all up and down the coast for municipalities to implement.
Yeah, John, you hit on a very salient point there, and that developer community, advocate, kind of conflict that's there, and we don't want to really be seen as the tool of the developer to overcome the objections of the community. We just, when they have that, conversation, and it goes one way or another, either it's preserved and the community prevails, or it's going to be replaced and the developer prevails. Whatever works out that way. You just don't want to see, when the developer prevails, that it goes into the landfill and all of that value to the community can't get returned to the community. Many of the projects we do in communities that are outside Baltimore, the product will go to some of the local nonprofits as well to support their efforts. It doesn't make economic sense sometimes to ship things all the way back to Baltimore to sell them, when the economics are better for them to stay in the local community. And our mission is not just to remunerate Second Chance, but it's also to serve the community that we're working in, not just to come there, pillage the property, bring it back to Baltimore and say, hey, thanks, Fairfield County, Connecticut. But we want to make sure that we're servicing and supporting that community as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've got in Connecticut the what's called the Plan of Conservation and Development, and every one of the 169 towns is required to file a Plan of Conservation and Development, and this is a big part of it. And I think you've given us a way to address many of our plans of conservation. So I want to just point out again, secondchanceinc.org. That's where you're going to find Second Chance and Mark Foster. I want to thank again Grace Farms Foods. Find it at sharegracefarms.com. That's robertocabrera.com, his latest newsletter. Theengelteam.com, that's me. And Boroughs and Burbs, you're going to find this at episode 206 in about a half an hour. Thank you so much, Mark.
David, thank you so much. Everybody needs to know about this, because if you're not doing it yourself, someone who could use it. That's for sure.
Hey,
That's very kind of you. Thank you.
Well said. If you don't have a house that needs to be recycled, you probably know somebody who does. Well said. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, David.
Thanks, guys.
John.
Thank you all. Appreciate your time.
Bye-bye.